Okay, looks like we're recording. Great, thank you. All right, so hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for an orientation to the library and its services and resources. So just some introductions here. My name is Jennifer Rempel, and I'm the Information Literacy and Resource Access Librarian here at Athabasca University Library.
And hi everyone, I'm Joanna Namath, and I am the Instruction and Reference Librarian.
Okay, and Dandy Wang is also joining us today, and maybe I'll let her speak on mic if you like, and if not, I can always introduce you to Dandy.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Dandy, and I'm a practicum student at Athabasca, and thank you for having me here today.
Yes, and Dandy will be helping us with chat and with posting links and just in general learning from what we're doing today. So, all right, so we are covering a fair amount of material. Again, we'll be about a half an hour, but we will leave some time for questions at the end of the session. If you do have questions as we go, feel free to type them in the chat box, and we can answer them either at the end or as we proceed through the session. But today we're going to look at library terminology. It's always very useful. And we'll do a brief introduction to AU Library, focusing mainly on the website and our services. And this will include finding library materials and then where to go for research help. And as I said, we'll have questions at the end. We're going to start with a little activity, though. Our question is, where do you go to find reliable research resources? And I say answer in the chat. We're actually going to post a link to the Jamboard. So we have a Google Jamboard where you can go online, and maybe I'll share my screen with that as well. So the Google Jamboard, you can post little sticky notes in the board, and we're just asking you where you go first for information. So when you're doing your research, where's your first place to go when you need reliable resources? And I'll share my screen. Oh, hope everyone can see that. Great. Yes, we have our Jamboard going. So if you can see the left-hand side here, you can do a sticky note. So you just pull that up and then post what you like. So where do you go for information? All right, Google Scholar. Yeah, that's a common one. Wikipedia. Library. Excellent. We always like to see that. And again, there's no wrong answers. We just want to know where people go because, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of places to start.
And feel free to type in the chat also if you don't want to open a separate screen, and we can add it for you.
That's right. Okay, so maybe we'll give you another minute or so, maybe 30 seconds, and then we'll continue.
A lot of scholars, I find it's most useful to do some Google searching first to even figure out what I want to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
No one's using Google.
It depends how familiar you are with the topic already, I think, too. Sometimes if you're already pretty comfortable with it, you might start with Scholar or with the library. That's great. Oh, Sage, yes, EBSCOhost. A couple of people going directly to databases. That's useful as well. Great. Okay, so we'll maybe give you 30 more seconds. I'll stop sharing and I'll go back to the PowerPoint, but you can still see, if you open another tab, you should still be able to see your screen there, the Jamboard. Okay, and I will share my presentation again. Yeah, it always can tell us a little bit of bopping around here. So, okay, so yes, we're going to cover many ways to find reliable resources. We're going to look at the library homepage first. So before we do that, we do want to cover some of the library terminology that we'll be using during the webinar, just so you get a better sense of what we're actually talking about. So we have another question for you. And again, if you go back to the Jamboard, you can see it on page 2. If you go to the very top, you can see you can scroll forward through the slides. And we just want to know what your base level of information is. So what can you find in a library catalog? And again, if you're not sure, if you don't know, totally fine. But what can you find in a library catalog? So we're going to just see what you know before we go. And again, go ahead, Joanna.
If anyone's out of sync on the slides, I just noticed mine popped up with a sync to presenter because you can slide through them yourself too. So you can do that to make sure you're in the right slide.
Yep, we should be on slide 8. Share my screen once more. There we go. Okay, let's go first. Excellent answers there. DuckDuckGo, I see. Okay, what can you find in a library catalog? So again, it's challenging because there's library catalogs and there's library databases. So again, if you're not sure, you can just say, I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay, so we're getting some answers here. Maybe we'll give you another minute or so. Okay, a lot of interesting answers. Okay, good. Not sure? Yeah, totally fine. Scientific research, yes, it's often the case. Okay, so maybe we'll go with maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And again, if you're not sure, that's totally fine because that's why you're here, right? Okay, so I think we'll wrap this section up too. So we have some answers here. Books, definitely. Um, One thing I'll say, primary sources often, yes, primary sources can include books. What you will notice with the library catalog is you typically will not find journal articles and you will not find articles in newspapers. You can sometimes, depends if they're in print or not. It gets a little bit complicated, but not to worry, we will go over that. So I will just go back to our presentation here and we'll share our PowerPoint again. So we'll stop sharing. And actually, we have another question for you as well before we get out there, which if you go to section 3, the third slide in our Jamboard, we do want to know now what can you find in library databases. So in our catalog, before we go to the slide here, our catalog, again, this is where you're going to find books. So AU Library, this is where you're going to find print books and ebooks. So AU Library, we have about 150,000 print books in our collections. We do have a physical library in Athabasca on campus, and we have over 330,000 ebooks as well. So catalog is generally for books and ebooks, not so much the articles and newspapers, right? So you can also find some videos in our catalog. So we have DVD copies of videos still, usually for courses, but you can order those. And we have streaming videos as well in our catalog. And you can find other media. So some courses will require like psychology kits, science models, that kind of thing. So when you think of a catalog, generally you want to be thinking of books, ebooks, mainly print, mainly physical items, some electronic material as well. So not so much the journal articles, but we will get into that. And it was kind of a trick, I guess, because the databases, we want to ask you, now that you know what's in a catalog, what can you find in databases? We weren't trying to be sneaky here, but again, if you go to page 3 of the Jamboard, you can fill in your sticky notes again and let us know what you find in databases. So you should have a bit of a clue now, and I'll share my screen again. So we're on page 3. What can you find in library databases? Peer-reviewed articles. Yep, there we go. Yes, all right. Abstracts. And again, it's a bit confusing, but it's okay if you don't know, if you weren't sure, because this is why you're here, right? We want to just make sure the terminology is really clear for everybody, because it does get confusing with libraries sometimes. Okay. Looks like we kind of have a good idea here. Newspapers, yes, that's often the case too. Newspapers are a bit tricky. You will typically find access to electronic newspapers in databases, yes. Theses and dissertations, a couple of places to find those. We do have databases with those. The library has our own institutional repositories with theses as well, which we'll point out just a little bit. But all right, okay, go ahead, Joanna.
ProQuest has both a really big newspaper database and theses and dissertations.
That's right. Yeah, so I'll go back to our PowerPoint. Good job, everyone. We kind of got to carry on, but these activities are always a lot of fun, but we should get back to our session. So I'll stop my screen share. And Joanna will take over. I just want to let you know, so yeah, databases, this is where you're going to find periodical materials. So these are items that are published on a quote-unquote periodic basis. So they're published every once in a while, sort of, or on a regular basis too. So these include things, as you mentioned, articles. So journal articles, scholarly materials. You can find book chapters sometimes from ebooks. little bit confusing because you find books in the catalog, right? You can find newspaper articles, book reviews, and many more things. Through AU Library, particularly, we have 200 journal article databases, and we have more than 107,000 individual journals in full text as well. So Joanna is going to host another quick activity, and then we'll explain the terminology in more detail. So take it away.
Okay, so I should have taken control of those slides now. So what we want to start with is kind of doing an anatomy of a journal article. So we're going to first explain journal articles, journals, journal databases, and we want to see if you can find all the parts of a journal article. So we're going to give you a minute to take a look at our next slide, slide 13, and then I'm going to give you less than a minute. I'm going to show you this slide, and then I'm going to ask you questions, and you can just write in the chat just so you get an idea of where all of these things are, because they'll come in really handy when you need to find articles in the future. So can anyone identify the title of the journal?
Oh boy.
Okay, and you can just write it in the chat box. All right, good job. We wanted to start with this one because it can be a little bit tricky. A lot of times if you think title of journal, you think pedagogy, but the journal is actually published. The journal article is published in the journal called Environmental Education Research. So great job, Amy. We will go back and continue. Can anyone pull out the author's names? This one's a little easier. You don't have to write the whole things or get it right. Yes, perfect. Eaton and Day. And can you identify the volume and issue numbers? Another important one, as Jen said, because journals are published periodically, they always have a volume. They usually have an issue number as well. An easy way to tell them apart is that typically volume always comes first and issue number comes second. So yeah, great job, everyone. 26.4. And pages that the article is published in. I was working on one today and I almost pulled out the wrong one because it also said beside the page numbers how many pages it was. So I was like, why isn't it on page 16? But it was on page 400 and had 16 pages. So 457, great job, everyone. Okay, so now we'll explain this more in detail and particularly explain the difference between journal articles, journals, and journal databases. So as you work on your assignments, you'll be asked to find journal articles to support your argument. A journal article is usually written by a scholar or expert in a field, and the audience for these articles is usually faculty, researchers, scholars. Journal articles are considered to be scholarly as opposed to articles published in magazines. Journal articles are found in journals. Journals are a type of publication that is published periodically and are sometimes referred to as periodicals. Scholarly journals, refereed journals, or peer-reviewed journals. If a journal is described as peer-reviewed, it means that experts in the field have reviewed each of the articles found within it before they were accepted for publication. Journals may be published with a variety of frequencies, such as once a year, twice a year, every quarter, every 2 months. Journal databases are a collection of journals made available in electronic format that have searchable indexes. Some journal databases include the full text of articles, while others only provide the citation and abstracts for the journal articles found within it. Journal databases may also include articles from magazines and other sources, but most also provide you with the option to limit your search to journals that are scholarly or peer-reviewed. Through AU Library, you have access to over 200 journal databases and more than 107,000 individual journals in full text. And now Jen's going to start us on a tour of the homepage.
So Discover is a tool. Can you see Joanna's screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I can't see it, so I'll have to go on what she's saying. Okay, so all right, so you can search different parts of the library collection, and again, apologies for these errors. But we can give you an overview of what you can find in each of these tabs. So Discover, this is a tool that searches hundreds, but not all, of our databases, as well as the AU Library Catalog. Okay, so we're going to do a quick search using the terms social media and misinformation. So as Joanna searches, you can see some of the results there. These are going to include materials from our catalog. Okay, I can see the screen now, great. Materials from our catalog as well as our journal article databases. So Discover is kind of a catch-all search, right? Please note though, it does not search every single one of our databases. It kind of operates by searching metadata and linking to databases, but that's neither here nor there for today. You can on the left-hand side though, see ways to filter your search. We have various guides on searching Discover. Discover itself, we do a whole webinar on. So today we're just going to show you briefly how it works. On the left-hand side, you can limit your search results to full text, peer-reviewed, to AU Library Catalog only. You can filter by date, type of results you want, all kinds of things. We do have a guide to narrowing your searches in Discover. Social media and misinformation, as you can tell, yields thousands and hundreds of thousands of results. So you want to learn more about that as well. Yeah, Discover is very useful. Scholarly articles, if we go back to the home page, that is a subset of the Discover search. So what this does is it uses the exact same search tool, but it cuts out, it limits your results only to those items that were written for a scholarly audience. So it's going to cut out your results for the AU catalog. It's going to cut out anything non-scholarly. But as you can see, if we do that same search again, you can see that it's the same search except for all of the non-scholarly items and all of the items from the library catalog are removed. So that's very useful to know. One thing to note too is oftentimes you will see a PDF attached to the record, or you'll see a link that takes you to the database in full text. Sometimes there will not be a link, as you can see in example 3 here. There's no full text link. Doesn't always mean we don't have access to the item. You can try to track the item down through a journal title search, which we'll show you in a second, or you can order it through interlibrary loan if we don't have access. So if there's no link, no PDF, don't worry about it. You can search in other ways, or you can order it through ILL. So we're going to send you a link to another guide. This is the guide of the research process and accessing sources. This has more detail on this because the journal title search, again, this is our third tab on the home page. This is a search of all of the journals we have in full text. So this is purely a journal title search, right? So if you know exactly what you're looking for, it's extremely useful. So for example, our article Petropedagogy was published in the journal Environmental Education Research. If I was looking for that by itself, I could type in the name of the title of the journal, click search, and you can see in our results list if we have access in a variety of databases. And it looks like, here's a good example too, you have to be very careful about typos. So we have to make sure it's environmental. We're missing the N. So there we go. Thanks, Joanna. But that's a good example. This search, pretty finicky. If you don't have the exact spelling, you have to be pretty careful. But yes, environmental education research, we do have access for about the last 25 years. And you can see the different databases we have access through. So again, more information in our guides. We have a guide to journal title searching. We can't go into detail today, but you can read our guide to find out more. And you can always ask for help. Okay, our final tab, additional resources. This is where you're going to actually search our library catalog. So I wish the tab said catalog, but it doesn't. It says additional resources. This is where you're going to search for books and ebooks. So only the catalog, no journal article searches at all. We're going to do the same search for social media and misinformation. One thing to note about the catalog is because it's fewer items, you're typically going to do a more basic search, but you can see social media and misinformation. We do have some ebooks and books on that topic as well. We're going to talk more about accessing books a bit later because we do have print and electronic items. For our ebooks as well, we do have guides to this topic. So again, we're going to fill the chat with links because that's where you can find more information. We'll share a link to our ebooks guide. And again, we're not going to go into detail about search strategies. We do offer training sessions, or rather webinars and training materials on searching. And again, we're going to send you the search strategies webinar link, as well as our Search Like a Pro course. Again, this is a real basic intro. Not going to go into details, but you can find more about searching in those webinars and tutorials. And again, just real quick, to the right of the search box, you can see, very useful, we have our chat box, Ask Us Chat. So we do offer live chat from 10:30 a.m., so starting in about 10 minutes, 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday. Okay, so this is a real brief intro to our search tools. Joanna is going to go over the library website a bit more, and we'll show you where to find resources and information about borrowing.
Okay, and I think all of our computer issues led us to be a little bit short on time, so we'll try and go through these really fast.
Apologies.
So to start out, if you go into Find Resources, I'm just going to point out like the important ones, and you can go into Find Resources again. This is going to take us into what we call our resource portal, which is all the databases that AU has access to. So if you're really subject-specific searching, this is where you're going to want to go. It is important to point out there's different types. So if you're looking for data, dictionaries, and encyclopedias, that can be a really good place to start with your research, as well as primary source documents, that type of thing. It can be really good for history. But you can also find the subject-specific databases down here. Those are great if you're in psychology, business, nursing, a lot of those areas, including like even our Indigenous studies has some really great databases, and women and gender studies, some very like top subject-specific databases. So those are great to go through. I'm going to go back to the homepage so we've got the correct background, but digital collections goes into the DRR, which is where you're going to find readings for your courses if your course has a DRR. We've also got the digital theses and project room, as well as D-theses, which is AU graduate work, and the digitization portal and AU space. In how to use the library, the first tab is going to provide you with information about borrowing from our physical collection by interlibrary loan and other libraries across Canada. That'll include your borrowing periods, that kind of thing. If you go into borrowing resources, this will show you, this is where you get the loan rules, which will show you how long you can borrow depending if you're a student, alumni, faculty, staff, etc. It also is going to give you information on our reciprocal borrowing privileges with places. We've got like the Alberta Library card, which includes a lot of libraries across Alberta, as well as COPL. And these are only for in-person borrowing, so it doesn't mean you get full access to, say, U of A's internet databases. Using search tools is another one that's going to provide you information on the homepage search boxes and the resource portal. And maybe I'll continue sharing and you can go through the next part, Jen. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, thanks, Joanna. So many problems today, apologies. So our Get Library Support tab, also very useful. This is where we have our guides and links to support within the library and across campus. So we've arranged these to kind of cover the whole, all stages of the research process. So we start with planning your research, going through tutorials on getting started, where to look for things, accessing services. This contains more information on and guides to how to use the catalog, how to access interlibrary loans, and more. So you can also find out how to get research help at the very bottom of that page as well. And again, there's material all over the place about where to get help. There's always lots of links. Our guides, tutorials, and webinars page, you can see there. This is really your go-to spot for library tutorials. And again, it's organized to go through the entire phase of the research process, or every phase. So we're going to just show a few particularly useful things. So planning your research, just some tips there. Finding and accessing research materials is useful. It contains in-depth guides on searching the library. So you can see our AU Library Catalog tutorial. We have some guides to specific databases. Our Discover guide is very useful again. That's a whole tool in itself. And we talk about things like Google Scholar as well. A lot of students, as you mentioned in our Jamboard, you go to Google Scholar and it's really useful. And you can set up AU library links. And so this guide shows you how to do that as well. Again, also tips for Boolean searching, very helpful guide. We highly recommend you look at this. As you notice, we search for social media and misinformation using specific terminology. You cannot search the databases like you would search Google. You can't use full sentences. You have to use specific terminology, and our ands, ors, and nots are Boolean operators. So we highly suggest you look at that one. We do offer a webinar on search strategies as well. And again, that's going to be a recording of that is on our YouTube channel, which you can look at later, and we'll share the link to that later. Again, we have a mini course too on searching like a pro. Very handy for you to do. Joanna built that, I believe, in Jordan. So if you want to take a look at that, that's really helpful as well. Today's just a brief intro. We will share, I believe, a link to our YouTube channel already. And again, also very important is writing, citing, and scholarly communication. So this section, again, academic integrity is useful to look at. You don't want to plagiarize by accident, of course. You're going to need to cite your sources when you're doing your academic papers. Again, you might use APA, MLA, Chicago, various styles. We have citing Indigenous elders as well and Indigenous sources. So that's a very useful guide for you to look at. We have some citation management tools. The library doesn't own these, but we encourage you to use them if you prefer. These are tools that help you keep your citations and your research organized. We offer a webinar on that too, which we'll be doing in the spring for sure, but we have guides to these tools as well. And again, other topics you could look at if you want to peruse later on. And again, writing resources. We get a lot of questions about writing. The library doesn't do writing support specifically. That's the right site. So we do offer some resources and links. We will share the Right Site link in the chat box. Thanks, Dandy. The Right Site offers writing coaching, and they can help you with your citations as well. Okay, and then again, we have our Get Research Help. One thing you might want to look at too, very specifically, is our requesting research assistance. This is where you can go. We offer reference services and research help. So if you have questions about detailed research, problems, things like that, you can get in touch with us. And also, we just want to really quickly point out our fixing technical problems. What you will find if you are a frequent library database user, they all collect cookies. Sometimes you just get too many cookies. This morning I had to clear out my browser's cache and cookies to get things operating again, which maybe didn't work, but oh well. And you can see that you can clear your cache and cookies there. That often is the first step to take when you run into technical problems. And finally, we have our frequently asked questions page where you can get information about various topics. And again, the final tab about AU Library, that's just more information about us. So contact forms, our mission statements, staff list, things like that. Okay, so Joanna is going to tell you a bit more about your library account and we'll wrap up, hopefully just on time or a little bit over.
Okay, awesome. It looks like we'll be slightly over time, but I'll just give you a brief rundown. A lot of people ask about this, the library account. You only need to go in there if you need to renew a book, see which books you have out, that type of thing. It's a students, I don't want to log in because it shows your address right away, but students get kind of stuck in there because there's a search box for the catalog. And they're like, why aren't I finding anything on my topic? So that's only for renewing books. Everything else that you're going to be asked to log in for, you're going to use your MyAU login, and it's going to be when you start searching. Anytime you're going into some database, anytime it's a proxy covered item, that's when you're going to be asked to log in. And usually you only get prompted once, and then it saves, once you've done your session, then it saves you in there. So that's good. So we just want to conclude that you can view a recording of this webinar as well as other webinars on our YouTube channel, which we posted in the chat. We've got live chat happening right now, or it should be starting anytime now, Monday to Friday. And our regular office hours are 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday, Alberta time, but you can ask us questions and email us anytime. We try to respond within a day. And so you'll find all of that on our Contact Us page. You can submit a research topic, that kind of thing. And we post everything that we're hosting or events and that type of thing on Facebook and Twitter. You can find the links for those down here, and we'll also paste them in the chat box. So that's everything. Thanks for attending our session, and feel free to ask any questions you have. This was just supposed to be a basic intro for you to get an idea of what you can do on the library. And be sure to check out my last recording of our Search Strategies webinar. That's just a 30-minute session on how to search the library.
Yeah, thanks, Joanna. And that's right. We'll hang around a bit if you have more questions. I felt like we maybe had to rush a bit the last bit. And again, apologies for my technical problems, but I think my internet's working now just fine. But yeah, again, this is just a brief introduction. Your in-depth questions you can ask us right now if you have a few. We'll hang around for a few minutes. You can always contact us through chat, through email. You can set up a reference appointment. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the kind comments. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, everybody. And again, we highly recommend you follow us on Facebook and Twitter just because that's the best way to find out about upcoming sessions. Staff accounts, yes, there should be.
Are you looking for like what you can access with a staff account, or do you not have a staff account yet?
Probably don't have one, or if I do, it's perhaps out of date. So if there's a tab somewhere I can go and read about it, I just wasn't sure.
I think it's under borrowing resources. You've got the different loan rules, and then that's how we would set up the account. Basically, email us if it doesn't work for you to log in with MyAU. If you try search, you won't be able to use the library if you don't have a library account. And then it just kind of depends. If you're contract, you'll have to get your employer or your supervisor to submit a form to IT that we get. It kind of depends what phase of the process of your job you're in. But yeah, we can set up an account for you easily.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll start with that link. Thank you.
Okay, and if you've been here for several years, I'm sure you have an account. So
I
yeah,
probably do.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's okay. Yeah, these things, it's easy to forget sometimes. But we do have, again, for staff too, we have so many resources. We have tons of ebooks, so many articles you can get access to. It's really, really great.
All right, any other questions? Oh, I guess I'll stop recording as well.